Hello, Howard Baxton here again. In this video, we're going to move on to instruction card 10, and it's about macros and UPPBOOLs. We'll throw in some placeholders and a menu prompt, and we're also going to talk about base 64 encoded strings and what they're good for. So let's start out with macros. Macros allow us to define and store data such that we can harvest, meaning use it, that data in a couple of ways. First way is we can combine and store some permissions Boolean values to be used in for more complicated expressions. It's also a way to do some nice shorthand. We can create a macro name such that it shows us what our intent was. So when we look at this 6 months or a year down the road, we can look inside the note card and it will be much easier to determine what we're trying to do here, what the purpose is. Okay, we can also assign text to a macro and use this text in chat messages or menu prompts or other ways. But for menu prompts, it gives us a menu user a status, for example. That's one way to use it. I hope I said that right. The example we're going to use is to actually give menu users a status. Okay, so to see how we can use macros, let's do this first one first. To see how to use macros as a complicated Boolean expression, let's return to what we did in instruction card 5, which was the couples that we did, the couples animations. Here we create a couple of buttons in a submenu and allow couple 1 to select their pose and use button permissions to limit who can see those buttons in the card name. So in other words, we put some permissions on here that said you're either in seat 1 or you're in seat 2. You can see this sit 1 button and sit 2 button. But if you're in seat 3 and 4, you can see sit 3 and you can see sit 4. In other words, sitters in seat 3 and 4 will not be able to see these buttons, and sitters in 1 and 2 will not be able to see these buttons. Okay, but there's an issue here. So for small builds with only 1 or 2 buttons, this is acceptable to do, and it does create the issue of all users being able to see that couples submenu button. Okay, you may not be able to see what's inside. All you get is blank buttons. Since I'm standing, I'm not in seat 1 or 2, and I'm not in seat 3 or 4, so I can't see any menu buttons. We got these blank buttons up here. There's another issue for builders who like to add dozens of options for the couples to select from. This creates an issue where menu memory could be excessive when you get up there and you've got 8 or 10 submenus below this submenu and 8 or 10 menu buttons in each one of those submenus. So you can see where adding button permissions to every button is a little bit on the ridiculous side. And it creates menu memory issues. Okay, so if you really like to build and you really get carried away and there's dozens and dozens of buttons, putting a menu permission on each one of those, or a button permission, starts to eat into the menu memory. Okay. We have a way to limit the use of button permissions by creating one card to apply one button permission to dozens of cards. We can create one card and apply a button permission one time by creating the card denoting the submenu button. In other words, we could build a set couples menu button and apply our permissions to that submenu, and it will, the only time you'd see that submenu button is when you're in seat 1 or 2. So at this point right now we can see couples. That option could go away to see that submenu. So you wouldn't click this and get these blank buttons. And it is inherited. So any submenus below that submenu button there would also not be available to be seen. So that's kind of what we're after here. So it also reiterates, when we return a year from now, we look at what we did, even the button permissions are clear what our intentions were. Okay, so I've put in the couch that we finished with our couples, and we're going to revisit that and kind of fix this to be, one, better at using memory, and two, document what we're really trying to do in easy words rather than these erroneous menu permissions or button permissions. So it says resin edit the pad, meaning the couch. Let me change that. Couch above. In the Contents tab, open the init card and add the following line. Okay, so if we do that, open the init card, let me move that over here. Add the following line. This is a macro, so let's copy this, paste it in. Okay, now when we look at this line, we're defining macro, and the first one we're defining is couple 1. So this macro will hold the value of 1 or 2 like we have up here. Okay, and we're actually defining a second one, which is couple 2, which denotes that one there, 3 or 4. Now we can do this in a different way if we really wanted to, but I'll explain why in a minute. We don't want to do that. We could define a second line and add the second macro. Okay, so what happens is nPose is going to read this first line and send it through for processing, and then it's going to read the second line here and send it through for processing, so it gets processed twice. But if we do away with those and put them both in the same, where it's going to only send this line once, and it will process this one, and then it will also process that one. So, you know, you can see those can add up. If you got one macro line, you can define many macros. So that's the whole point, and it's going to save some memory. It's going to save some time, because you don't have to process 2 of them. We only process 1 line, and we go from there. So that's why we did this. It says save and close the card, so let's save it and close it. Now we need to fix the cards that we've already built and put them in separate submenus. So we'll do couple 1 first, and then we can go on and do couple 2. It says rename set couples sit 1 to this. So let me copy that Let's go down here, and this is the card we want to rename, and paste that in there. Now, let's rename couples sit 2 to read just this one. We'll rename that and paste that name in there. Okay. In your inventory, create a new note card named set couple 1 with a permission at, and that's our macro that we created, one of the macros we created, a couple 1 macro. So let me add a new note card here and paste in that name. Now it says open the note card and modify it such that it can be saved. This gives it a valid UUID. So let's go up here. Let's add a space. And we can even delete that space, and it doesn't matter, but as long as we can save it, contents are saved, then we have a valid note card. It says save and close, add it to the pad. So I'll go ahead and add it to the pad. And the discussion says this will actually assign permissions 1 or 2 to that submenu button with couples 1 on it. Okay, so our couple 1 menu button is that. Okay, so let's see if this is true. If you click the menu while standing, that couples button will not show. Now why is this? Well, we have this permission that says you have to be either in seat 1 or in seat 2. And since I'm standing, I'm in neither one of those. And so let's try that. We don't see the couple 1 button. Okay, so if we sit and remenu, we do see the couple 1 button, and we see both of those buttons in there, sit 1 and sit 2, which is what we tried to do. So this works as this, actually. And if you notice, we put the @ sign in front of the macro in order to get nPose to read that like it is a permission. Okay, so that's there. And it says we would not see those buttons, and check that you're able to get the submenu while seated in seat 1 and in seat 2. So if we change seats, let's swap 1 and 2, go back, we can still see the couples 1 button. If we change seats and go to seat 3, for example, and go back, we do not see that couples 1 button. So we've accomplished what we wanted to do. Okay, so I'm going to let you finish for couples 2 and do the same thing. And in this video, I'm going to move on to the next topic. And I'll save the second use for macros while we're in this next topic. Okay, our next topic is what are UPPBOOLs? And as the name indicates, these are user-defined permissions, meaning that we could set up and name our own permissions, not just the built-in permissions. We will have to change our permissions on the fly when needed. So in other words, we need to maintain the values for our UPPBOOLs when the situation requires it. And it says we're going to work through an example of this. What we're going to do what we're going to do actually is create a toggle button in the menu. Okay, so the first step here is in the init card, .init card, we want to add these two buttons. And we're going to put in a facial state, which is a macro, and we're going to assign this text off to that facial state. Okay, so if we go down here and actually add those two lines, paste them, and what's it say next? Save and close. And this is going to set up the initial state and Boolean for our button permissions. The UDP Boolean we're going to use for a button permission. The macro we're going to use elsewhere to tell us what the state is. Okay. So our Boolean is going to be named toggle. So let's save and close that. Init. Now step 3 says make a card in your inventory and name it. Set on off with a menu button or a button permission of not toggle. Okay, so let's copy this, create this new note card, and name it set on, not toggle. So in other words, when our toggle is 0, that's the only time we're going to see this menu button. And inside the card, add these two lines. UPPBOOL, we're going to toggle it to on, and we're going to set our facial state to on. So let's copy these lines and add them here. Okay. If someone clicks the menu button, nPose will change the toggle state to on, as well as the facial state to the text on. Okay, it says save and close, and add it to the pad. So let's go ahead and add it to the pad. Step 4, make a second card in your inventory and name it set off, and with a permission button of toggle. So when toggle is true, we will see the off button. Let's copy this, add a new note card, and paste in that name. Okay. We want the off button to be displayed when the toggle state is 1. Inside that card, we want the two following lines. And let's copy those two lines, add them to the contents. So in other words, when you click the off button, our UPPBOOL, our toggle, will go to 0, and our facial state will go to set text to off. And save and close and add it to the pad. Okay, now, I don't think we have to sit on the pad to test this, but we can if we want. We should now have the functional on-off toggle button in our menu. The toggle buttons are not doing anything yet, they're just pretty buttons. Okay, so let's see. Do we have an on button? We have an on button. Do we have an off button? No. Let's click the on button and see what happens. That button turns to off. So now all of a sudden we have toggle button. And obviously it's not doing anything. We didn't give it any task to do, but we've created a toggle button. Okay. Now it says let's give this card something to do. It says check that your pad has the following plugin inside. If not, add it. I do not see that inside, and we're looking for the facial layering. So let's go up here to facial layering, grab that plug-in and add it to our pad. Okay. Let us make these buttons do something now. We can turn facials on and off with these buttons. If you are not wearing bento heads, you'll see them in action. Add the following plugin. And step 5. What this is saying is if you're not wearing bento, you'll see this in action. These facials that we're talking about using are actually, oh, I don't see them here. We're going to need some. They're actually using the built-in Second Life facials. And if you're wearing bento, you don't see the system body or head, so you won't see those, but I'm going to actually turn those on and off. Okay, let me take a moment and actually fix our default card and add some facials in here. So give me a moment. Okay, now we've added these internal facial animations or animations to our default card. So this all works. Notice something interesting here. We have express surprise emote, express shrug emote, and express press disdain at the same time. So they're all going to run at the same time, and it will run all 3 of those. Where I went to get those was out here at this website. And I got those off of the list that's in that website, so I could use them here. We don't have to have these animations in our build. Second Life just knows to go where to get them and which animations they are, and somehow or other they're part of the system. I can't tell you whether it's in the viewer or whether it's on the server, but probably in the viewer. So here we are, we've got them. Okay, so now if we're not wearing a bento head or a mesh head, we will be able to see these animations running. Okay, so now that that's done, where do we go from here? Where did we pick up? Step 5, edit the set on not toggle card and add the following lines. Options, facial expression equal on. That is a global option, and it will actually turn on facials so that we can see them. And then we're going to actually add what is our facial state? Did we do that right? Facial state. We actually want to put this to on. If I can type. There we go. And this one should be off. There we go. Okay, so we want to add these 2 lines. Set our facial state to on, set our facial expressions to on and options. So let's copy these. Go down here to our toggle. Toggle on. Oh, we've already got our facial state there. Let's make sure we got everything in there. We don't have the facial expressions in there, so we don't need this line. We've already got it. Okay. So there we go. And it says save and close. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this because it's already in there. And we'll save and close. Now in our off, toggle button, we want to add this line. So let me copy that. Where's our toggle off? There it is. Yeah. Paste that in there. Since we've got our facial state off and we've got our toggle off, we just need to do the action of turning our facial expressions off in options. There we go. And save and close. Step 6, in your inventory, let's add a new card and name it set. Copy that. Add a new card and name it set. And inside that card, we want to put up a menu prompt. It says hello display name, and the /n is going to be a carriage return, and it's going to say special facial expression state equals, and we're going to display our macro, the value in our macro. And you notice we've got the /ampersand and the ampersand / to encompass facial state. Okay, so that's different than what we did up here in permissions. Where did we, oh, we went clear up here. Where did we build it? Right here. We put the single ampersand in front of the macro name to get it to work with permissions. So let's copy this and actually put it inside the set card. Paste it in there. That doesn't say save and close, but we better do that. And add it to the build. So now what's the significance of this simply set with no colons and everything else? This is similar to our submenu button that we built wherever it's at. Right here, we built the submenu button couples 1, and we had to name it set : couples 1. Just simply set will apply our menu prompt to the root menu, the base menu, okay? And we added it to our card. It says now test. You will see the facial values in all seats and active. Let's see how that works. So if we touch for menu, here it is. It says hello, and it calls out my alt name, and it calls out the facial expression as on. Since it's on, we have the off button shown. If we toggle that to off, then facial expressions are definitely off, and we have the on button showed. Congratulations, we've just built a toggle button and actually grabbed its value and put it up here in our header. Okay, you will see facials in all seats that are active when not wearing bento mesh head. This function uses the SL built-in facials morph, I guess, and will not animate bento heads. You should see the menu in the header has changed, yeah, so we just displayed that. It displays the current status of the facials. You should only see one of the two menu buttons displayed because of the UPPBOOLs. And we can do the same thing in our line permissions within a note card, and we'll see that later, how to do that. And it says if you edit the default card, you see the animations. Well, we did that, and we saw that we didn't have them, so I went ahead and added them. And here's even another copy of the internal animations. So far we've seen what macros done. We're now using them. We've seen UPPBOOLs, how to use them. We've seen one example of placeholders, which is, you see my name, that is done by the percent display name, percent. This is a placeholder, so it's actually grabbing my name because I am the user, the menu user, actually. So just so you're aware of that, that's kind of cool. And we've seen how to use a menu prompt in the root menu. We can also use these submenu buttons as well and add submenu button headers there. So please check out all the links in the wiki below, blah, blah, blah. And I think yeah, I'm good. Let's move on to what are base 64 encoded strings. These are strings that when decoded can allow us to use special characters or symbols in our text. They can be used in menu prompts, they can be used in text chat, menu names, to add a nice bit of fluff to our menus. When we add base 64 encoded strings surrounded by $$ and $/ into our menu names, they will be added to our menu buttons. An example, if we created a note card like this, the menu button would look like Heart Cuddle. Let's just try that. Let's copy that to a new note card name, paste. Let's edit it and make it a real note card so nPose won't cry. Scripts like to cry a lot. And add that to our menu. Let's touch and see. Here we have it. We have the Heart Cuddle. Very cool. See more about these in note card names on the web, on the wiki. And to create your own, there are some links in the card reference named special characters. And that's here. And if we open that, I have to copy it to inventory, so let me go look for that. Special characters. Here's an example of a few, and they're base 64 encoded string surrounded by $$, $. Here's a nice little website you can find a lot of symbols on. And here's another website. You can copy those symbols and paste them in here, and it will create the encoded, or the base 64 encoded text to go between the $$ and the $/. Okay, that's all I have here, so I'll quit chatting and we'll see you in the next video.